That's all I'm doing. And welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. I checked with you. Don't do
I
this
felt like
to
I
me.
got quick pitch. Where's my drum roll?
Quick pitch. I gave you 10 seconds. I said, are you good? Are you ready?
Well, I thought you were just kind of concerned about my life.
And
I didn't know.
Welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. We are going to talk today about election endorsing. What are the effects that Trump and Biden may have on the upcoming primaries? You and I can't get over what's happening in Shanghai, China. We're going to talk about that in some of the video that's coming out. I briefly mentioned it beginning of the week, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
It has escalated. It's only gotten worse. And now mainstream media is starting to pick it up. So we're going to dive into that a little bit as well. Some weekend trends. I know it's Jackie Robinson Baseball Day. It's a Titanic anniversary.
I was just thinking, is this this is the day it went down, isn't it?
No, that April 10th, I think, was before. But the movie, I think, is having a 75th, or no, what is it? Something, a 25th anniversary?
96?
There's an anniversary.
Is it going back to the big screen?
We're stepping on the segment. Anyway, lots of stuff coming up on the weekend trends. And before we get to all of that, on April 15th, 2022, Mark, how are you feeling today?
Well, I'm a little confused. So you asked me how I was doing.
Yes.
But that's different than a drum roll. So I'm sure, like before, like the 100-meter dash, the starter may say, "How are you doing?" But he still says, like, "Runners take your mark," and then shoots the gun.
I think the exact.
Like, I need a drum roll. I was waiting for a drum roll. You quick pitched me.
I think what I said to you was, "Are you good?"
But I thought you were showing genuine concern. I didn't think you were saying we're ready to start.
I show you genuine concern at the beginning of every show. I let you express your feelings to start this show off every episode. And now, like, I'm getting knocked for not, like, having concern for you.
You tried to throw me off. I wasn't here yesterday. How did you miss me yesterday?
You know what's funny? Can we talk about this?
You can just say no.
Well, no, can we, like, armchair, like,
sure,
psychology? So it is funny how talking with you for an hour every day, it is funny how the days that I don't do it, I feel it's like my pockets are empty. Like, you know the feeling when you're like, I swear I'm forgetting something, and you start like checking for your key and wallet and everything else. There is a weird feeling like in the middle of the day, if we don't do this, I do kind of have this moment of like something's off.
You feel worse.
I don't know what it is.
I think that's what you're saying. I think you're lost without me is what you're saying.
I'm saying to you that, like, they say you develop, what is it, like 21 days to develop a habit?
Something like that.
Something like that. Like, what I'm saying to you is that the habit has been developed.
So now I'm a habit.
Yes.
I don't think that's a compliment.
You don't think so?
I mean, you have good habits and bad habits, but generally I think habits aren't.
Yeah. So when
that's a good question. My first reaction with habit is that there's a negative connotation.
Oh, see, no. I always see habits as good. Habits are developed. It's something that you add.
I should always cliche with it's a bad habit.
Yeah. No, that's true.
That is interesting. That is a psychological. Freud would have fun with that one.
We should look up words that are like a on the fence 50-50 good or bad connotation. Habits is a good one. I don't know if most people would view that as positive or negative connotation. They had to pick. Can't be both. You had to pick one. You're going bad.
For me, it's bad.
Yeah. See, I think I would go good.
I won't. And
what does that say about our
I consider myself to be like a positive, upbeat guy, but
you view habits
when I use habits as bad.
Huh. Interesting. Do you want to talk about elections endorsing?
But I think of a routine as good. And
but that's
what's the difference?
What's the difference between
I don't know.
and habit?
I guess it's just the word.
See, I kind of fear routine. I see routine as like the dwellings, like you get into, like you can't get out of the mundane of the routine.
Ah, see, now I do get that. It doesn't say, I just say breaks the monotony. But I see a routine as a positive, and there's a word that goes with it. Because it's bad habit, but it's not a good routine. Is it just anyway? I don't know. That's funny. Anyway,
yeah.
Go next.
You want to go next? We're doing it. We're moving on.
No, I don't know. Whatever.
Let's do you brought this up. Let's go with election endorsing.
Well, here is my spin on it, and I just thought this is my 45-second spin, and maybe that's all we talk about. Now that we're getting to the primary season, and Trump just endorsed Dr. Oz. And my immediate thought is, there are, if you are a Republican running in the primary and you're running against other Republicans, obviously, now it's kind of tricky. Do you want to be the Republican with the Trump endorsement, or do you want to be the Republican without the Trump endorsement? And because we've said historically, especially with the Democrats tried to ride on Clinton's coattails and on Obama's coattails, and Republicans obviously rode on Reagan and I'd say the second Bush more than the first Bush, and it's weird that a guy who was so, I would say, beloved or fanatically supported as Trump was, that now we are 2 years away. Mm-hmm. Do you want his endorsement? Then you followed up, as we were talking about this before the air. Do any Democrats want Biden's endorsement, even though he is the sitting president? Right. And I think we're at a weird time in history where usually people just jumped on those.
So let's answer your first question. So let's start with Trump, then let's move into kind of the shoe on the other foot. I don't know if you knew this. I just was looking up the numbers. Trump has verbally endorsed over 120 different candidates across the country.
Okay.
For the
primary season.
For the upcoming primaries. There's two ways to look at that. In my opinion, one way to look at that is it shows either he believes that it's important for him to endorse winners, because I think it's fair to say right now I think people are expecting a red slide in the next month or so. Is that fair to say?
Well, but no, because it's only primary season.
Well, that's true.
So yes. We're just dwindling down Republicans to Republicans.
Correct.
And Democrats to Democrats.
But I think most people would agree there's a red slide
in November.
In the horizon,
yes.
There's a red slide.
Yes.
I do wonder if he sees it as a chance to get out ahead and say, look at all these winners that I've endorsed.
That's fair.
I also think he could view it as like he truly believes he still does hold power over the GOP, and that his endorsement means something. Now the opposite,
and it does.
Oh,
he does have power. Absolutely. And it does mean anything. The question is how much and which way. And yes,
totally. The other side of it would be, did he water down what a Trump endorsement means
by endorsing 120?
By doing it for 100? Because I agree with you. It's certainly a Trump endorsement has power behind it. Like I hope it didn't come off as I don't think that. I do think that it has some oomph to it. I just wonder if you do it 120 times. Like if I come in here every day and I go, the movie I watched last night, it was fantastic. It was so good. By the 60th day I walk in here and say that, you're going to be like, you think like every movie's
no,
like I'm not taking. So I do wonder, what was the number? Is this too many endorsements, and what does that mean?
Well, see, and what got my mind thinking about it was when he endorsed Dr. Oz, and I don't think Dr. Oz is going to win. Now, I haven't seen any polling, so maybe I'm way off.
Yeah.
But my immediate thought was, well, he was a successful, and it made sense to me that he was endorsing Dr. Oz because Dr. Oz represents what Trump was, that he was a political outsider. And, so this is our guy. He's a political outsider who's a smart guy who wants to do it. So he's my guy. But then I just thought too, it's kind of the same thing. What is the strategy behind? Is he just trying to stay relevant and keep his name in the news by saying, because if Trump supports Dr. Oz, it's going to be, it's making the news. So, but it's interesting because, and I hadn't even thought about the Biden side yet, but our unique place, and we're in such a unique place in political history, and I don't think anyone would debate that we've never been this divisive. But Trump is still the biggest name in the Republican Party, no doubt about it. Biden is the sitting president, so he's the biggest name in the Democratic Party. And do their endorsements really hold what historically we think they would have held?
I do. Like, if you were an independent, I wonder which one would be more beneficial to have. If you took away the Republican side, like if you were an independent that was running, I wonder, because I think going into the horizon, I do I don't know if the endorsements matter as much as Trump or Biden or whoever else would like to think they
Well,
do.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
What is the real meat behind the endorsement?
I think for the primaries, I think they matter because you're running against someone in your own party.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get that stamp of approval and you get that extra boost in the polls, I totally get that. Moving past 2022, I don't know how much it matters. I think so much has happened in the last 2 years. I don't even know if a Biden or Trump endorsement is really going to be enough to matter for you.
It's interesting. It really is
past
interesting.
2022.
I think you might be right.
It'll be very, very curious to see it. The independent side of it is very unique as well. Because most of the time, if you're an independent, you kind of know who you would want an endorsement from. Or I don't know, if you're an independent right now, it's really, really tough to decide who that would be. I don't know if you would want one. I don't know if you'd want a Trump one over Biden or if you'd want a Biden one over Trump. It's tough.
I don't know.
If you were Andrew Yang right now, and you're like he started the progressive. What was the name of the party? Remember, we were just talking about it the other day. Now I can't think of it. But anyway, you start your own party. It's essentially you're an independent. You're an outsider. And it would be curious if you asked them, like, hey, if you could have, and you get to choose, which endorsement do you want to have? Would you rather have Trump or would you rather have Biden? See, right now today, I think I would lean Trump slightly over Biden if my objective is to get elected.
Yes. When you just brought up Yang and his, I've always joked. I thought during the last presidential election, I thought Yang was the smartest guy on the panel. Mm-hmm. And I also said there's no way we're electing an Asian. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter how smart he is. America's not this. But after electing, I never thought we'd elect a black guy either. Mm-hmm. And then when we elect Obama, do you think America has advanced far enough to elect a guy whose last name is Yang, even though he's the smartest guy on the panel?
Here's why I think Andrew, and I'm just looking up his age right now because I want to make sure.
I want to say he's not 50.
He's 47.
Okay.
Here's why, and I think Andrew Yang knows what you're expressing. I think he knew that beforehand. I also think he got way further than he ever imagined he would. So I think he's looking at the landscape, and that's why I think he did this whole like start his own party, and I think he's just saying to myself, like, I don't have to win. I just need to outlast.
So he won't win at 47, but he could win at 55.
Yes.
That's a good theory.
And that's why I think he's a step ahead of everybody. Now, it doesn't mean you'll win. Like, there are people that have played the long game before and it never worked out for them, for sure. But I think a lot of what Andrew Yang does has nothing to do, like, I don't think him running in 2020 had anything to do with 2020. I know that sounds insane.
No, that's a good theory. I think I'm on to that. I'm buying what you're selling.
Yeah. So I think he's very, very much onto something. But it's one of those things too, like, I guess to end the conversation, election endorsing, I don't know. It's one of the rare times before where, like, I don't really know how much, if it really matters as much as it did.
No, I'm with you too. Where's Yang from? Do we know?
I don't know.
I want to say California, Colorado, but I don't know why those are stuck in my head.
He went to Columbia Law School. Oh, the Forward Party is the name of it.
Remember,
we couldn't think of what it was.
Yep.
The Forward Party as well. Yeah. So there you go. Andrew Yang.
No, that's a good. I like your theory, and I think we talked about this the other day. I mentioned it on when we had Joe Lashinsky on. Harvey Milk, who was played in the movie by Sean Penn. He ran like 4 times, and he ended up winning. He didn't. Was he in state Congress? Was he in real Congress? I don't remember what he won, but it was his 4th election. So he didn't just, and he was the first openly gay person. I was going to say man, but I think it was openly gay person to win a public election. But it did. He got it, and he kept at it, and kept at it, and kept at it, and then, so Yang.
But his was like he wanted to win, and I'm not saying Andrew Yang didn't want to win, but I think Yang's.
But they're smart enough to be like, listen.
Yes, I think he knew, like, I might not be president 2020, 2024, 2028, but like, if I do this right and I lay the groundwork,
I bet you're right.
I bet you're right.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting. This is the thing that's most on my mind right now. Mostly, just because we've never really. I don't have a comparison for what's happening in Shanghai
It's
right
a
now.
sci-fi movie.
There are
Post-apocalyptic.
There are certainly things that have happened. There are things that have happened that are worse than this. There are disasters that have happened that are worse. But this is unique in the sense of we've just never had footage or video or anything like it. So in Shanghai, they are locked down currently because of a zero COVID policy in China. So essentially, like China is trying to have no cases. If there's a positive test, they lock down, they shut things down. There was a story a couple of months ago about someone tested positive walking into a huge shopping center, and they literally shut it down. We talked about the theme park story. Do you remember that? Where they kept everybody in the theme park for 13 hours until they could test everybody in the park because they had one positive case of someone trying to walk in.
Right.
It is shit. And even that was kind of bonkers. Like, it was weird in the moment, but I don't know if it even compares to what's happening now. What's essentially happening is they went from having you could stay within your community, but you were locked down within it. They shifted that, and then you were only allowed in your apartment complex. Now they've shifted that, and you now must stay in your apartment. Right. So you can't even.
So it's constricting.
You're not even supposed to leave your front door right now. Since that has happened, they've gone to relying on food delivery systems that have all but completely failed the people in Shanghai. People are making multiple orders. They're getting canceled. Some of them are government systems, and the government is like canceling the orders because they cannot fulfill them. The creepy dystopian part of this, they have robots and drones. So they have like the four-legged. You ever seen the Boston Dynamics, the university?
I know
like
you mean,
the four-legged. Yes. They have those style robots with megaphones on the top of them. And they are telling people some of the things that they're saying is like avoid gatherings, check your temperature, prevent epidemics, remain civilized, wash your hands, ventilate frequently, wear face masks. And they're just walking around the street, these empty streets in Shanghai, blasting this stuff. People are going out onto their balconies and they don't have any food, so they're screaming, they're yelling. Drones are then flying overhead of them, telling them to remain calm and civilized, to not leave their house. It's like something out of a Bradbury novel. Like it's absolutely insane, the dystopian place that Shanghai is in right now.
So what? I mean, they can't be. What's the government do when it's too far gone? It's not like Shanghai's a little city.
No, I want to say it's 25 million.
What happens when it's too far gone and now you just have chaos? Because the people aren't just going to sit there and starve.
But this is one of the arguments that I was hearing on Breaking Points yesterday, is that if you had to pick one culture to kind of go along with this, it is the Asian culture. Like, it is that mentality of like for the greater good and
really,
yes.
I find that hard to believe.
Now, to your point, like it's a different ball game when you start starving. Like
you would think.
Like when you're desperate, like people, that mentality can change up in a hurry. But like to your point, like how far will it go? I think it's going to go further than what you or I would ever expect it to go.
Yeah, you're saying it'll go further than it would in America, because in America it wouldn't go very far.
It's not even close. It's not even comparable.
Stay in your apartment. No thanks.
No, someone made the joke to me the other day, like that drone would have been shot down by now. if it was
Could
America,
you see the robots marching down the street, people just taking the Louisville Slugger to it?
Americans, the robots would be dead. Like it's just not even comparable. So that's what's happening in Shanghai. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. The streets are empty. They have volunteer systems set up, but anybody who volunteers, you have to wear a full hazmat suit when you leave to go like volunteer to help with deliveries and stuff like that. Really, really crazy stuff.
Could you imagine sitting at your front door and having a guy in a hazmat suit handing you your pizza?
No,
wouldn't that
crazy?
Wouldn't that cause me like, wait a minute, what's wrong with my pizza?
No, it's absolutely bonkers. So then there's one other video. So I told you about the robot and the drone footage, and you can find this stuff if you go online. There is another one of at nighttime all the people out on their balconies, and then like some of them are chanting, they're protesting, they're screaming, and this guy's filming it. And it's again, like it just gives you chills because like these people have not had food, some of them in weeks, like delivered to them. Like they're going over a week now of this, that like the delivery systems are failing. They're not getting what they need. It is absolutely insane. So one of the things they're doing to protest is when they come out to the balconies, Chinese families are literally dragging their fridges out onto the balcony and opening them up to basically demonstrate, like for video and for whatever, like we don't have any food. Like we have nothing left. If you do not let us out, like we are going to starve to death.
It's crazy.
It is absolutely bonkers. The other piece that's just coming out now too, they are beginning to, there's two things. One is they're beginning to split up children from their parents. So if the parents test positive, the parents go to a different location than the children, and the children are essentially
just left.
And vice versa. If they both test positive, or if the kids are taken off, but the parents cannot go with them. So that wouldn't
go over very well here either.
So that's another thing that's happening with it. Now in this morning, there's a couple of reports. One was NBC, one was New York Post. Essentially what's happening is some citizens are starting to come out, and now we're getting video footage of clashes between people. They're being called protesters. I'm really struggling with them being called protesters. Like when you haven't had food in a week and your government is failing you, it's
not a protest.
It's really hard.
It's life
for me
and death.
To see. Yes. But they are now essentially clashing with cops and volunteers and stuff, and it's really, really bad. So it is. Some of it's tough to watch, but I think it's important for people. I think it's important for people to see some of this stuff. Like really important.
No, I'm with you.
I'm not implying that like it's a slippery slope, but it is. I'm sure people in Shanghai a year ago never could have imagined.
You can't imagine this. I mean, we hear about the atrocities that happen to like women in certain cultures around the world, and you're just kind of like, what year is this? And it's still happening. And to think that this is happening now, 2 years into COVID, but that this is happening now in Shanghai is just. And this isn't some village in remote anything. It's Shanghai.
25 million people.
Yeah,
it's nuts. Well, one of the points that you made before we came on was you said it's like a movie, but we had talked like in a movie, it's very clear why you're being forced to do it.
Right.
Like there's dead bodies or there's this or that. Like for a lot of these people, and depending on who you are, like this is not even close to being the solution for what the actual problem is.
Correct.
It's absolutely bonkers that people are being starved out for this.
Yes, like it was the movie Dustin Hoffman Outbreak or whatever, where something and I don't know if I saw Outbreak, but something that would eat away at your skin, or that there's something in the oxygen that if you breathe, you're just like, oh, this makes you sick, and there's a percentage of people who die, and it's not, So yes, you're right. This is a bad science fiction movie.
And it also like just even the government side of it too, because I know a bit about China, but I've really never dove into the like how their government is set up. However, I mean, it was like they were ready for this. Like drones, robots, like hazmat. It was like they were, and that's to me the creepiest part. That it was like, all right, here we go. And
could you imagine a government like, everybody just drive to Harrisburg and pick up your robots. They're going to walk.
I mean, I hate to use the word joke, but when 2 years ago, we had kind of joked about how we're not ready. No one has a solution. Like even in the state of Pennsylvania, we talked about like the struggles in Harrisburg and how do you handle this and how do you do it? And like making the right restrictions for one area versus another area and all this different things. And we kind of joked about, but in hindsight, like, the solution was never to just like put it's not like robots and drones were walking the streets of Philadelphia like a week. You know what I like?
Right.
That's the really crazy, creepy part about it.
I'm with you.
Really,
really crazy.
Let's dive into some weekend trends. I'm going to hit you up first. Jackie Robinson Day.
Yeah. And I just read something about it. It's, if you've seen 42, if you haven't seen 42, whatever, it's a good time to reflect. It's the 75th anniversary of Jackie Robinson breaking into the major leagues with the Brooklyn Dodgers. Just the neat story about it. is that they kind of they knew the color barrier was going to be broken, and it was about finding the right guy. And kind of the history behind Jackie Robinson, that he'd been to UCLA, he'd been in the military, he was a 4-sport athlete. I just read something about today. He played in the Negro Leagues for like a season with the Kansas City Monarchs, which is a famous Negro League team. The Negro League Hall of Fame is in Kansas City, actually. And but he was not at his time in Kansas City was not a great baseball player. That coming out of college, he was a better football player, and they thought that he was a better football player. But he was such a great athlete, and he got an opportunity. And the kind of the irony, I just read this morning. I think I might have read it on CBS Sportsline, but he got a tryout with the Red Sox of all teams. There were 3 guys that were sent, and I guess 2 guys were stars, and then Jackie Robinson was sent because they knew he was a guy who could handle, because they knew all the crap that was going to come with it, and that they thought that, you know, they were looking for someone who could handle it. And I guess he had a good tryout, and then that kind of went from Boston back to New York. But Boston has long been known as an extremely racist place, and you know, I think CeCe Sabathia just came out lately and said that it was the toughest city for him to go to just for being a black guy. And Boston was the last team to integrate. They waited till like 59. Okay. So there's a little bit of irony in it that Boston actually had a tryout, and Jackie Robinson, and I don't know the other 2 guys, said, we never thought for a moment that it was sincere. But for some reason, the Red Sox did it. And because he had a good tryout there, some scout went back to the Dodgers and went to Branch Rickey and like, you really got to look at this Robinson kid. And so that's where it went. But it's today's the 75th anniversary. And so, yeah, that's so I just learned a little more that wasn't covered in 42. But there's a whole Pee Wee Reese was a big thing. And just the imagine the big story about Pee Wee Reese is the issues that the white players had to deal with too, that were like, you know, don't be nice to him, don't be this. And did you ever see 42?
I have not. No.
There's a scene where Pee Wee Reese, I think Pee Wee Reese was from Ohio. I'm probably getting this wrong, but they were kind of back in his hometown, and he was hearing all this stuff. And after a while, he'd been a teammate with the guy, and he's like, he's a good guy.
Right.
And during infield, like he went over and stood next to him and like put his arm around him, like between innings, and people were like, what's he doing? And Pee Wee's just like, just shut up. The people need to see me standing here next to you. And then he went back over to his position, and then they kept going. Yeah. So it is. It's a good story that reminds us of a bad time.
No, I'm absolutely with you. You want to stay with movies? It is the 25th anniversary of Titanic.
Are they re-releasing it in the
released
theater?
In 1997. I don't know if they're missing out if they're not. Let's put it that way.
What a great movie. It has been so.
Do you remember leading up to it? First of all, it was leading up to it. People said it was a disaster.
Really?
Like the whole. So first of all,
they ran out of money.
They ran out of money. It took them over 150 days on set. So this was over 5 months of being like on set. Now, granted, not every actor, actress has to be on set, right, but like
everybody else does.
Like 150 days is pretty crazy. Kate Winslet got pneumonia, and she had a failed kidney.
Well, I know the scene where Leo is handcuffed to the thing. Okay. And that water was cold.
Okay, yeah.
Because she's like, I need to. Like when I jump in and I gasp, it can't be fake.
Feel it. Yeah. So she got pneumonia. Like she was sick. Most of the cast at some point got sick. There was like a food poisoning thing that had happened. So if you read like the whole build up to this movie, it was a disaster. The actors and actresses were like, this is awful. Like there's no way this is going to work. Apparently Cameron was like really, really, I guess like hostile might be the word. Okay. Like he just wasn't, there was not a lot of jolliness after being.
I don't think he's a jolly guy.
Probably not. I think he's a very tunnel vision. Yes. Like we are here to do this thing. And if you get in the way, then like you are in the way type of guy. But the other thing they did too is that they apparently made shirts. They started calling James Cameron Midge, which I don't know because it's Jim backwards.
Okay.
So in order to like make fun of him or like have like an inside joke behind, like they all referred to him as Midge. So if they wanted like Midge is being such a jerk today, like that type of thing. But leading up to it, like it was really, really bad.
Did you know in the scene where Leo is drawing Kate Winslet,
It's James Cameron.
it's James Cameron's hand?
I did know
He's
that.
actually the drawer, yes.
Because Leo was so bad. Did you know that?
At drawing?
It has nothing to do with James Cameron being good at drawing. It has everything to do with Leonardo DiCaprio was that bad at drawing.
You say like that, like it's a bad, like I can't draw anything.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, like, imagine they couldn't even like fake it. Like
Okay.
he was so bad, he couldn't even just like shade something that they could just use. Like he was that bad. They were like, this isn't gonna work.
You know what else I'd heard, which has nothing to do with
What's
nothing, that the vehicle, I guess that they went down and saw this. James Cameron's brother had something to do with the design or the build of the deep sea exploration device. James Cameron's brother either built it or designed it or was just on the team that did it.
Interesting.
But it was a little bit of a family business there. Did you not to take it to another tangent, but when we talk about movies and real things, that I've seen the interview with Kate Winslet, and when she jumps in the water and she gasps, and now every time I see it, she's like, no, the water was cold. And they're either it was, I don't know if it was her idea or Cameron's idea, but they're like, no, it's got to be, if it's not cold, you won't react right. In The Revenant, when you've seen The Revenant,
yes,
when the Native American was eating the buffalo and DiCaprio was starving, and he gave him some, like whatever he ate was really like a raw animal organ or whatever, because DiCaprio's like, I can't, it won't look right. I won't look. And he's like, you better get it because I'm only doing this once. And they said, whatever, he ate it and they had the blood all over him and then puked all over the place. But it was a real raw something.
Pretty crazy. So
anyway, back to if Titanic is going to the big screen, I am going to the big screen.
I think if it doesn't, they're really, really missing out. That's especially for the industry that is movies. Like theaters are missing out if they don't put it back in for a year. Let's do. Did you see Elon Musk's new offer to Twitter?
$43 billion.
$43 billion. Depending on which report you read, some people are calling it like a takeover. Other people are seeing it as like he's going to revive free speech. It just depends on who you talk to.
Or both.
Or both. Could be both. Could be a hostile takeover to revive free speech. That's, it's very, very possible. Do you like, not that you or I are an expert. A couple of people said Twitter's not worth $43 billion.
That's what I wondered.
Okay. So this is my, and again, I'm nobody. I said, you're right. It's worth 50. Like, I think the power behind Twitter, I don't even know if you can put a price tag on it. I don't even know if you can put a price. Like, if you could, owning a Twitter or a Facebook or a TikTok, owning one of like the 5 major platforms, I honestly don't know if there's a price. I think the price is whatever the richest person could afford. Because I don't know if.
Well, I mean, you're right. It's hard to bring a competitor and say we're going to outrun TikTok or Twitter.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you know how to use it, there's nothing more powerful in the world.
I'm with you.
I mean, that's a hell of a valve to have your hand on.
No, yeah, I'm with you. It's just $43 billion. Like, what to me? Like, oh, $2 billion, $43 billion. Like, if you would have said Elon Musk paid $3 billion for Twitter, I'd have been like, wow, that's a lot of money. Well, he pays $43 billion. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money.
So to put it into context, though, like the most glorious sports franchises, $2 to $3 billion.
Okay.
So do you think Twitter is worth 10 times the Yankees? See, I think it's not even comparable. I think Twitter's worth 20 times the Yankees.
And I get that.
Right.
But on the flip side, you can't go make a new Yankees tomorrow. You could make we could make Twitter tomorrow.
See, it's so funny because to me, it's not about creating the platform. It's the power behind the platform. So yes, you and I could go make a platform, but but it's not going to have the cachet or the of
Not
Twitter.
yet, but it
What
could.
do you mean not yet?
MySpace had all the cachet,
You and I-
and then they
okay,
lost it.
You and I could start a baseball team, and we have a lot better chance
But
of getting
we can't get
hold on.
approved into the big league.
We have. I understand that, but if you and I got approved for a big league team, we were going to be the 30. How many teams are there in the major
30.
leagues? Okay. We were going to be the 31st Major League Baseball team. Or we were going to start a platform on social media to be like the big six social media. Catching up to the Yankees is, I don't want to say astronomically, but significantly easier to do than catching up to Twitter.
But we can decide right now we're putting a competitor to Twitter. We can put it online, and
no one will go.
But no one will stop us. We can't just show up and say we're going to put a Major League Baseball team together because they have to get approval.
I know you're missing the point of it though, because the point that I'm making is like if you and I are going to make a Twitter, we're trying to get to where Twitter is.
Correct.
Okay. So the point that I'm making to you is there's these like you and I don't know how to build a platform. We're making the assumption we can build the platform. Do you understand? So it's the same thing with the baseball scenario. Obviously, there's paperwork and there's red tape and like there's things but we are making the assumption that we could get through that red tape and that paperwork.
Why?
Because we did it for Twitter. We're assuming we could build the platform.
No, but there's other people that have a vote that we don't have a vote for.
Never mind.
No, it's just I like it. That's what the internet world gives you the opportunity. It gives everyone the opportunity. So there's a finite.
Sake, I know.
It's
for
just
argument's sake,
listen. I understand. Like Twitter has so much more power than the Yankee. I'm not saying that's just, but it's kind of like with the dead artists. Like the reason that artists, that the value of their work goes up is because once so and so passes away, they can't make any more.
Okay.
So it's not that their painting got better. It's just that they know there aren't going to be any more. The value of these professional sports franchises is there aren't going to be any more. So if you want to own an NFL team, there's 32 of them out there.
Yeah. So I guess that's a very good point. There's 30 major league teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's one Twitter, and if you want to make the argument, there's like 5 players in that field.
Correct.
So the point I'm making is Major League Baseball, you got a 1 out of 30 chance. Twitter, it's 1 out of 4.
And I get that. But 3 years ago, was TikTok one? No. And all of a sudden, TikTok's bigger than everything. 5 years from now, is it just going to be Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat? No. There's going to be something new.
Yeah, but like the Oklahoma City Thunder didn't exist like 10 years ago. And then they almost won an NBA championship. The Las Vegas hockey team was in the Stanley Cup.
But the person that created TikTok did not need the approval of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. All they needed to do was have it themselves in the vision and figure it out.
I mean, this is
nobody else. We can't break into their party.
It's a fair argument, but it's funny to me. Like you're willing to make exceptions on one, but you're not willing to make exceptions on the other. So the point I'm making is like on baseball, there's all this red tape and you can't get into the game. You don't think there's red tape getting into the social media game? Like
no,
you don't
you
think
you just start a website.
You're bonkers. You think in order to compete in social media, you just need a website. Like you just get a website and you're just boom, you're on the same level as like the rest of these guys you're competing
But it's not.
them.
There's a difference between gaining market share and red tape.
Okay.
Like nobody can deny us the ability to start off our own NCPA Twitter. We can start it.
But that's not
failure and success is different.
No, it's not, because that's an account.
Correct.
Okay. Yes. So you're not creating Twitter. You're creating an account on Twitter. Those are two very different things.
No. So we create our own version of it.
Okay.
And so you call it whatever you want.
Let's call it
Zitter.
Let's call it Hooter.
Hooter. Okay. So we create Hooter.
Okay.
And no one can stop us.
Okay.
And there's no red tape at all. Then we have to figure out how to get market share and marketing and build and blah, blah, blah. But there's nobody can step in our way and vote us down. Nobody can say you can't do it in our platform. You can only do it in that league. You can start up a rival league. You can start up. And in all these other places, like let
me phrase it to you this way. Donald Trump tried to start up a media platform.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. do you think it would have been easier for Donald Trump to buy a baseball team, or it would have been easier for Donald Trump to create the next Twitter? Because I can tell you right now, Donald Trump would have a much easier time buying the Yankees than trying to compete with Twitter.
Well, first of all, there's a difference between buying one and starting one.
Okay.
He would not have been able to start one. And he has tried to buy NFL teams before and they wouldn't let him.
They've kept them out.
But there's a difference between buying one that's for sale and starting one from scratch. And that's where I go back to the TikTok. We couldn't start a university and join the Big Ten.
But the argument you're making to me right now then is that a baseball team should be worth more than $2 billion because of the scarcity.
But I'm saying that's why why all the pro franchises have the value they have, because there's a finite amount and we can't add to it.
But I think that's what I'm getting at is like this finite amount. There's 5 of these things in the world.
But there were 4.
Okay, and now there's 5.
And in 5 there'll be 6.
Because then like one of them's going to be dead. Like there's only so many users and so much time in a day. Like you can't.
I disagree with that. Well, no. Okay, let me say that. They're just like when MySpace came out, why would they need anything else other than they got one that's better? Once Facebook, why did they need Twitter? Why did they need Instagram? You could put pictures on Facebook. Why do you need Instagram? Why did we need TikTok? Why do we? You don't. See, but they still keep using.
Please take this the right way. These are very like 50-year-old statements because what Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter all do are vastly different, and the reason you go to them are vastly different.
Correct.
Okay,
I agree with that.
So I don't know if I would just like mesh them together.
No, I do get what you're saying, but like if we wanted to go. I think to make a bad comparison, if we wanted to go make a burger joint tomorrow, we could. If we wanted to go open a McDonald's tomorrow, we have to get approval.
I think some of the things with these social media powers is there's like in the Social Network movie, it was all about like Zuckerberg kept saying like, it's cool right now. It's cool right now. It's cool right now. And you can't pay for that stuff.
I don't disagree with any of that.
You can't. So like when you say like, we'll just start a platform and like, there is a price tag on relevancy. There's a price tag on people, the want to be into what you have. Because if you have a baseball team or professional football team or whatever, even if you're the 30th place team, you are still cool. Like in your city, you are still it. You are still like.
I get it.
And so there's a price tag. Like I said, I don't think you could put a price tag on Twitter. Like if somebody said it's worth $100 billion, I would probably be like, probably.
I don't disagree with that point at all. Yeah. Whether it's worth 3 or 43 or 103, like it's worth a lot.
Yeah.
And you're right. And we can't afford any of it. And Elon Musk can afford all of it. So like, there's only a few people that really matter in this conversation. But if he came back tomorrow and said, if Twitter said, no, we want 73. And he said, okay, like, I'm not going to say he's wrong.
Right. Do you think now that some of this stuff, like, because this is the first time anyone's ever really like, here's a number, I want it. Like, no one's really ever done that for Facebook. Facebook's bought out a lot of stuff, but they weren't, like, Instagram wasn't quite Instagram when Facebook bought it out and all these things. Like, now that we see somebody actually try to buy this out, I started thinking to myself, like, is Elon Musk somebody that I want on the control valve of this? Because it was the first time where I was like, oh, like, these things are up for sale, even if we don't realize.
Should we announce that we would sell NorthcentralPa.com for $43 billion?
We'll give them a deal, $42,999.
We'll negotiate.
$42,999. But it got me thinking, like, we think of these things as like they're just here and
everything's
and it's
for
like
sale.
The wizard. And it was the first time I was like, oh wow, like if Bezos wanted to make an offer for, Twitter or for Facebook, like Bezos would have his hand on the valve. Like all of a sudden these things have valves and there are people and I knew Zuckerberg was behind Facebook and I knew Dorsey was behind Twitter. I knew there were these people behind it, but now like you don't have to build it. You don't have to know the space. It doesn't have to be this passion you built up from the beginning. I can just be some billionaire and just be like, it would be really powerful? Like deciding who gets to tweet. It's really powerful? Deciding who gets to go live on Facebook and just being able to like it really is unique.
What if this is stupid? What if one of these state governments was in financial trouble and he's like, I'll buy South Dakota. Give me a number. Here's $1 billion. I'll buy South Dakota.
We're talking like a Musk or a Bezos
Yes, we'll
or something
rename
like
it.
that.
Now it's called Elon.
There's got to be. Do you think there's federal laws against it?
Sure.
Okay.
But if there's an aspect, if some state is in financial trouble, maybe after a natural disaster, we could have the new Louisiana Purchase.
Well, I always die laughing at we did the whole thing about the Biden street sign and Scranton, and we talked about the Trump one in Texas and all this stuff. Like, I cannot believe that a state has not decided to sponsor itself yet. Like, hey, to help out, to keep our tax, we're not going to have a tax raise this year. However, welcome to the Exxon Pennsylvania state Commonwealth. Like I'm blown away that a state has not, that we have not seen a headline that like Colorado's in talks with whoever about like that stuff is really surprising to me because it's so simple. How many road signs are there in the state of Pennsylvania? Imagine just imagine an Amazon sticker on every single one.
On every sign. Yes.
And that's just basics. Like imagine every form, every site, I don't know. That part, I've thought about that before. I've never thought about someone actually purchasing the
But no,
state.
it's the same thing, but different.
Yeah.
No, it's good stuff.
Let me ask you this. Would you rather, if you could, because I know Loyal Sox taxes are about to go up. They just decided that at one of the last meetings.
Okay.
If your Montoursville taxes were about to go up, but I said to you, hey, if you put Wegmans stickers all over Montoursville, like on every sign it was sponsored by Wegmans and all this, but your taxes weren't going to go up for the next 10 years.
Well, this is people would just complain because that's if taxes went up, people complain. If you had a sponsor, people would complain.
I think it would be interesting to ask people.
No, it would. Yes, I agree with that.
If you had a deal where like, hey, in order to not raise taxes this decade, we are going to be sponsored by X corporation. Yep. And I wonder if people would be willing to. I don't want to sell out is such a negative connotation, but I do wonder how many citizens would.
It's interesting.
Be like, whatever, slap it up there. All right. Did I wear you down?
Did it wear me down?
Did I wear you down?
Oh, no. You mean to come over to your side?
No, you just got comfortable.
I'm thinking. I'm deep
anything else before we go for the weekend?
The only thing I do want to mention, and I know people don't care about this, but from a baseball standpoint,
they might.
In the history of baseball, there have been 2 hitters, and baseball's been around a long, long time.
Okay.
There have been 2 hitters to have 3,000 hits, 600 doubles, and 500 home runs.
Okay.
2. Hank Aaron and Albert Pujols.
Okay.
Miguel Cabrera of the Detroit Tigers needs 6 hits and 2 doubles.
Is it bad that the Pujols one doesn't impress me as much as
the Pujols one is incredibly impressive? His numbers are out of this world. He's the only player. I think he has 675 of each.
So did the last contract just like ruin Pujols for me? Like it's just watered down what I think of him.
It kind of, maybe he was just so good. Now he's 40, 41.
See, to me, when I listen to everybody else talk about these major baseball accomplishments, whoever it is, I always saw Pujols as like this finite, like there was this period where he was untouchable. And then there was this decline of just kind of like waiting out, milestone.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. But I think Willie Mays was like that. Hank Aaron was like that. They were
no different.
Yeah, but when you look at Pujols' numbers, they were just so much better than everybody else's.
Yeah.
But 675 home runs and double. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot. But Cabrera has like 29.94 in hits and 5.98.
But see, I don't think of Cabrera that way.
He won Triple Crown. Cabrera's super.
But that's what I'm saying is I think of him in a better light than I do Pujols.
Yeah, that's a good question. Now Cabrera, because he played in 2 places, the Florida Marlins and Detroit. Mm-hmm. So he's I don't want to say like their baseball
Lost in the
outpost,
shuffle.
but St. Louis is a much more glitzy. And then even when Pujols went to California, he went to LA. So, but yeah, it's just interesting that he's kind of still under our nose. We don't know how good he is, and yeah. So there's that.
Very, very interesting. All right. Anything else you can think
of? Just NBA playoffs kick. You're
yes.
still you like Phoenix.
I don't think anyone can beat them in the West. Depending on who they play in the East, I could see someone beat them. The big one, the playing games are tonight. Atlanta should beat Cleveland. Atlanta, Miami 1-8 in the first round is really interesting because Miami's like their guard plays older and Trae Young is fantastic. So Miami could have their hands full for 7 games trying to guard Trae Young.
Well, Atlanta's had some good recent playoff history.
Yes.
As recent as a year ago.
A month ago, I would not have thought Atlanta had any chance in the first round, but just the way they're playing now and like the whole thing with Miami, it's very interesting. The other one is Clippers Pelicans. The Clippers star Paul George is out for tonight. So the Pelicans should win and get the 8 seed without Zion Williamson tonight.
And Bucknell had a transfer portal from Bucknell to Penn State.
I believe his name's Andrew Funk without looking up.
So from North Central Pennsylvania to North Central Pennsylvania, he went from Bucknell to Penn State.
He did. He, I want to say second team All-Patriot last year.
Something.
Yep, I think it was second team All-Patriot League, averaged just around, I think it was 17.1 when I saw the.
Do we know, is he a grad student now? Or don't
I know he did like his 4 years. And see, that's but the weird part, like all these guys got that extra year.
When you get the year with the portal, it doesn't have
like some of these guys never redshirted and they still have the extra year.
Right.
It's pretty bonkers.
So anyway, a little Penn State Bucknell basketball news in April, which you don't get very often, but there it is.
No. Vassar College.
Oh,
by the way, can I give you? You were probably about to say this. Do you know the mascot for Vassar College?
The Brewers.
It's fantastic. Did you know they don't have a mascot?
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Well, because I asked my daughter when that's where my daughter's going. Whoops, over here. And what's weird about the world with the pandemic and stuff? She is admitted. She accepted her admission. Yesterday's the first day we were ever on campus.
Yeah.
We didn't go until.
And I don't think she's in the minority
necessarily.
I think there's a ton of kids across the country that are in the same boat.
So it's our first day on campus. They are the Brewers because the guy who founded the college made all his money out of a brewery.
Yep.
Maybe not all of it.
No,
but we were going through, we were in the science building, and the tour guide dude points over to the corner, and he's like, and there's our Steinway piano. And you're like, why are we in the science building and there's a Steinway piano in the corner? And he said, once upon a time, John Steinway's daughter came here, and he came to campus, and he's like, oh, you guys need pianos. And Vassar College has the most Steinway pianos of any college in America that's not a music consortium or whatever that word is for. It's not a music school.
Right.
It's a normal college, but he's like, when you walk, you can't go 100 yards and not run into a Steinway, because once upon a time he brought like 50, and he's like, here you go. So here's the other thing that's, here's my trivia question for you, which you'll never get, but you'll be able to use it on other people.
Okay.
It has what they call, I want to say the word is open curriculum, you create your own major, and you have an advisor, and you're like, this is what I want my degree to be in, like, whatever, you're an English major.
Sure.
So these are the courses that I'm going to take. And then they approve or disapprove, and you need to have so many whatever. So if it's English, it's simple, or poli-sci, it's simple. But if you come up with, like, I want to be in media studies or something like that, you look at their what courses are offered, and you sit down and you decide why, and that's how it works. There are like 11 colleges in the country that operate this way. That you can basically design your own major, I guess. It's like build your own Sunday. You can design your own major. There is one that is a Division I college, and it's Wake Forest.
Ah, interesting.
Because she's rattling off all these. I think like Smith was one, and Tough, and all these of that smaller hoity-toity-ish school. Yeah. And then she's like, Wake Forest. I was like, wait a minute. Duncan went there. Chris Paul went there. Rodney Rogers went there. That was Randolph Childress went there. This is a basketball school. This isn't a. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, no, very interesting.
So, but Wake Forest is a little Division I school
Right.
as far as population. They only have like 3,000,
Well,
3,500
I feel
students.
like you would have to be a small school to do that.
Yes.
You to not have a cookie cutter admissions style degree. You couldn't have more than 3,000. I mean, you would have to have.
And listen to this. And this, Meryl Streep went to Vassar.
Sure.
Lisa Kudrow. Like, there's some.
So on a lot of
hoity-toity.
TV shows, whenever the character is like a writer or a journalist, they went to Vassar College.
Okay. There's a Simpsons clip from it that I don't know
Okay.
if I showed you, but it's really funny. But so in the dining hall, and maybe this is common lots of places. It's just not when we went to school. But there's the dining hall. Then there's a side grill, like, and they like have a theme for the week.
Okay.
He's like, so it could be Mexican, and then it could be that, and it, you know, and he kind of went through last week it was this, and this week it was that. So if you're just kind of don't want the normal stuff, you can go over here.
Okay.
And he goes, and then they have a kitchen that's stocked. So he goes, if you want to go cook for yourself, you can.
Okay.
And the guy's like, so this morning I didn't have a class, I made an omelet, and so I went in there and like, but it's I don't know what the rules are of washing things up or if you've got it. But he's like, no, you can. If you don't like that, you know, and you feel like cooking your own stuff, you can just go over there and cook it.
This is gonna shock you. We did not have that at Lockheed.
Neither we did not have it in Susquehanna either. Like, we went in and there was timed and it was like, you have what's there.
Yeah.
Now we had varieties. Obviously, you could go to the grill or you could go to whatever. But the fact that you could go cook your own stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people would like that. I would have made like grilled cheese, but
I probably never would have touched it.
I don't think I would have either.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's
neat.
It is interesting to see for people my age, and now I have a daughter at Pitt, but then just like you go in the library, when we have a computer lab in the basement, now you walk in the library, there's computer monitors on every table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just the library, and I went in the library at Susquehanna this winter, and it looks like there's no more floors, there's no, but just see how it's different.
Right.
And you're like, now that what used to be the computer lab is like all these stacks of old like archivey stuff, because the computer lab is now on every table.
So you'll get a quick story before we leave today, because I think you'll appreciate this. So I started at Penn State Barron, transferred to Lock Haven University. So at Penn State Barron, I was in the library quite a bit, just like study halls, freshman seminars, all sorts of different things. But when I transferred to Lock Haven, I kind of bypassed all the freshman activities you're learning. Right. So when I transferred to Lock Haven, I never went to the library. Like, it didn't happen for me. Right. Like, I knew it was over there, but like, I didn't know where the door was or where, like, anything else. So finally, I believe it was my senior year, we had to do, it was for education. You had to do this whole program, but in order to do it, you had to kind of do it through the library's book system, because there were certain, so you had to rotate books with other people in the class and everything else. And so I had been on campus for 2.5 years, had never stepped foot in the library. So I'm in this like senior 400 level like education class, and I raised my hand and I said, where do we essentially, like, do we need a card? Like a card, like, do I use my ID? Like, how does this work? And the lady just looked at me and she was like, have you been to the library? And
you said no.
And I was like, no, I've never. And she was like, you're joking. And I was like, because like, I bought books and I would research, and I never had to go to the library ever. And like, basically she wanted to fail me on the spot because I had never been to the library.
So you were we joke about the kids who've never been to the library, don't even know where the library is.
I was that kid at
You knew where it was. Yes. You just had never been in it.
But I was that kid at Lock Haven.
So when they talk about the basketball team and say these dumb jocks, you've never even been to the library, that was you.
But yes, but it also comes down to just like, do you have the resources? Don't you? I was very fortunate. I always had my own laptop. I always had what I needed.
Well, right.
Like, I resourcefully had what I needed. And on top of it, I would do whatever I had to not have to go to the library. Like, right. Oh, I need this book, Pirate Bay, like download it illegally, like just getting the resources I needed without ever stepping foot in the library.
I think too, and this is my stupid philosophical comment of the day, but having, obviously I went to college and my brother, we both went to way different colleges, and now having two daughters, one who's at Pitt and one who's going to Vassar, I don't think the college is nearly as much about where it is or what it's the size of it. That do you want a big place? Do you want a place with 30,000 students? Or do you want a little place that's really personal?
Yeah.
A lot of the small places, the Lycomings of the world, the Susquehannas of the world, the Vassars of the world, they don't have grad students. So one of the things they talked about is when you're doing research, you don't have to fight with grad students for lab time or for research time because we don't have grad students.
Okay.
But my daughter at Pitt has said there are so many things here.
Right.
And not just because of the college and because of the city and because of all the other colleges that are around, but you're more on your own to find them because there's 30,000 people here and there's not an advisor that's going to take your hand. Yeah. So it's just, I have one daughter at a school of 30,000 and I have one daughter at a school of 2,500. And they chose properly. Like that's what they each need.
No, it makes a ton of sense. I would, in hindsight, going back, I was always told to go away because you can always come back. And I still to this day, like if you're somebody trying to decide, I encourage if they're split between like staying home or going, like those are the two choices. I always say to them like go, and if you hate it, come back. Like it's just because once you're here, it's a lot harder.
That's very well said.
Now here's where I messed up. My going away was Erie, Pennsylvania. So I tell people all the time,
go someplace warmer.
I tell people all the time, my regret is in hindsight, I would have went Virginia or lower. Now I probably still would have came back because I like it here. Like just people I knew, I had a good experience. But I would have been much better off going to like a school in Carolina, a school in Georgia, like just for like a semester or two, and then coming back. Because the going away to Erie didn't do much for me.
I can understand.
Yes.
Yeah,
so that's one of my regrets.
I was at an Odyssey of the Mind competition back when it was called Olympics of the Mind before they got sued.
Okay.
And we went to Edinburgh.
Okay.
It's the only time I've ever been to Erie.
Yeah.
I just picture Erie like the Fortress of Solitude. Like it is perpetual snow.
I tell people all the time, if you go to like Penn State Barron, if you go to Gannon or Mercyhurst, like if you go to those campuses, if you could pick up the campuses and put them like anywhere else, I would have stayed. I probably would have stayed. I could not do.
Winters are rough.
It just never stops ever. It just doesn't. And even you'll watch the weather and then you'll have to watch. There's two, by the way, did you know this? In Erie, there's two weather forecasts. There's the weather forecast and then there is the lake forecast. So you get on and you see what the weather is, and then you get onto the lake radar, the lake effect, and you see what that radar is. Because they can be two completely different.
Oh, I can imagine.
So you can look at the weather one and it'll be like 50 and whatever, but then you look at the lake and it's like, actually, it's going to snow for 3 hours this afternoon. So like I literally, when I would wake up, I would look at two.
Well, I had a neighbor that's, I don't know if they're from here, but they lived there a long time before they came here. And he's like, no, in summer it's great.
Summer, it's beautiful.
But as a student, you're never there in the summer.
Exactly. But you know why it's beautiful in the summer? It's never too hot.
Because the lake effect.
It's always like 76 and breezy.
That's what
it is beautiful.
He said that. In the summer, it's beautiful. Yes. As a student, it doesn't help you.
Yes. But here's the other problem too. Summer's like a month and a half. Like that's the other thing they don't tell you.
Yeah.
Like summer doesn't really start till the middle of June, and by August, like
fall, winter, spring, and July.
Like it's. But anyway, I didn't mind my time in Erie. It's just a brutal. It's
different.
If you're not from there, it's an adjustment for sure. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
That's it. We'll see you. Enjoy the weekend. Happy Easter.
Enjoy your holiday. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. And